Hey, this is Marlon from marlonmcpherson.com, and in this episode of Future Steps Creative, I'm going to talk about my web design and development process that I use within my web design business for clients and also apply to my own projects. And the reason why I'm sharing this information is to help you if you are, let's say, a business owner trying to build out your own website and you'd like to know what exactly goes into the process. This is going to help you have some clarity. And maybe you're trying to hire someone to do it for you, but you are not quite sure what they're going to be doing and what's involved. This is hopefully going to help you. Maybe you're actually a web professional yourself and you're offering other services, but not website production, and you'd like to offer this to your client. You can also learn from this and actually adapt the process to your own needs. Everyone's going to work differently. If you're new here, welcome. And this is Future Steps Creative, the podcast that talks about online strategy for your website and content marketing. So, I talk about things to do with creating content and building websites, etc. Hopefully this is going to help you in your business or help you help clients if that's what you do. So let's jump straight into the content here. This is going to be a little bit of a longer episode because of all the content inside this. I do have a written post that you can check out for details, and I'll try and skim through this as quickly as I can just to cover the main things. But it's a 4-phase process, it's a 4-phase process that have about 20 steps within it, and is a very planned out, tried and tested setup that actually works out to make sure that the project goes smoothly. Now, before I had this in place, when I first started out years ago and when I built maybe my first site or two, when I started out using Dreamweaver, that's how long ago it was. It was a case where I was just excited to jump in and start building, and I wouldn't really think things through as much. And what ended up happening was that I would waste a lot of time doing things that weren't necessary to do, or I did things the wrong way, simply because I was just like jumping ahead without any real planning of what exactly the game plan is supposed to be. So this will help you save time and save money by not having to redo things, especially if you're a business paying to get this done. You want to make sure that you go through a process with whoever it is that you're using, or if you're doing it yourself. So the phases are planning and strategy, design and build, or design rather, and then build and development, as well as the launch phase. So to simplify that, we have plan, design, build, and launch. So normally with the first phase, there's a discovery call beforehand that goes through what the client is actually looking to do. So this is where I try and figure out whether or not I can help them. If it's a good fit for my business, then I would let them know, and I would let them know about the likely cost, because this is something important to get out front with the client to make sure that you're not going to go ahead and go into the next steps and waste time if they don't really want what you have to offer, or they're not able to afford what you have to offer. Maybe they're thinking about a cheap and cheerful site on Wix or Squarespace, as opposed to a professional building them a site using a platform that's open and they own the site and control it and can kind of grow that with their business, which is a completely different thing, having that done, to go into a service that's an off-the-shelf service, which they can pay like $20 a month or something and get it really cheaply done. This is completely different. So I'll make sure that I set expectations and find out whether or not this is what they really want to do. And if they've got the budget and they're happy and they want to proceed, then the next thing is to do a price quote officially, or a proposal. It just depends on the project. I will do one or the other. That's going to outline the price and the overview of what's going to be done on the project. But there's another document called the SOW, which is the statement of work. This really goes into detail about exactly what's going to be implemented or what's going to be built or designed on the site. And this leaves basically no room for ambiguity as much as possible. There's also an agreement that comes along with the proposal and the price quote. So the client needs to sign off on these to say, look, we've reviewed it, I've reviewed it or whatever, and I'm happy with what I've seen. This is exactly what I want. And then everything should be fine and smooth, hopefully, because then you're not relying on the client remembering what you've promised them, and you're not having to remember what you've promised because everything is literally just there, and they don't think, oh, am I getting this or am I not getting this, or certain things, that they might have thought about but not communicated. And this can happen and, cause issues down the line. So make sure you do something like that. So once a client signs off, then the next thing is for them to leave a deposit. I take 50% down, and this is non-refundable because at this point, we're committing my resources and anyone that I'm working with, their availability, and we're giving up other projects, or we're losing opportunities by saying yes to this project. We want to make sure we're compensated if the client flakes out and decide that, okay, we don't want to do it anymore. The deposit is really to show that they're serious and they're ready to proceed. Otherwise, we don't start the project, right? Once the deposit comes through, we then go into a strategy session where we basically do either a live call over video conferencing, and go through really what they're trying to accomplish. We outline the call to actions for the site. We try and figure out and go deep into more details about the type of users and how people are going to use the site, etc. All of these things, so we can make sure that we knock things out of the park. So anything that we do, the decisions from here on with what we build, what we design, is going to be based on what we've outlined in this strategy as essentially the game plan going forward. And everything's based on that rather than subjectivity. We know we have this clear goal that we're trying to accomplish here. So the next phase is the design phase. We try not to dwell on the design too much. A lot of people get caught up with design and fancy bells and whistles and things. We believe in having out the gate a very good looking website, period. Especially in this day and age, there's no reason why your site should not look great. However, we don't try to go over the top with doing too many bells and whistles and things on a page that's unnecessary, because one, it can actually affect the performance of the site in terms of load speeds and all of that if you have too many things, images and graphics and stuff like that going on. So we try to keep things minimalistic as possible, and just incorporate the things that are necessary, which is going to actually showcase the brand of the client and help the user, who's really the most important thing here, the users of the site, help them navigate the site and be able to go through in a structured way to get to the goal that we need them to get to, which is contact us for a contact form or do some kind of other action so we can actually convert them into a sale or convert them into whatever it is that the goal of the business is. So generally, we have two approaches. The main approach is we have pre-designed layouts that we would show to the client based on what we think would work best for the plan that we have for their website. And they would choose a layout on which we would then customize to suit the brand by adding their logo, adding their colors, adding their images and their content, which we'll collect at this stage as well. Now, sometimes a client might actually want very custom designed work. And in that case, we work with a designer to actually get this very custom work done that they need to get done. This is something that we'd definitely obviously build for and we'll account for when we do the proposal. But most of the times we have the layouts that are good for pretty much any kind of website, and we can just adapt them to make sure that we make it their own. The content, this is a sticking point, and we normally let the client know we need to get the content early on, like at the design stage, because the text and images, the copy that goes on the site, basically the text, is important in terms of how the site, the actual pages are going to be laid out. And we don't want to have things that are too much in one section and not enough in another section and so on and so forth. So we need to know where things are going to go and how much text we need. So we try to give the client guidance on what to provide and how much of it to provide, right? For a homepage, it's different to like writing a services page or writing an about page. So we kind of give them guidance there. However, if they struggle, if they're going to struggle with this, we have content writing services that we can offer as well. So we can include that as part of the project if they need us to do the content writing, which may be easier because then we don't have to be back and forth and waiting on them for content. If anything, we'll just be asking them to review and approve, and we can revise things, right? So once we've done the content gathering, the text, the images, the logo, etc., and so on, we then pretty much move on to the build phase, the build and development. So this is where we actually put the site together. We install the site on our servers to make sure that we have full control of everything until the complete the project is completely done and the client's paid up for it, so we can then hand it over to them. I'll explain how that works in a step after this, but here what we do is we set up the website. So we use WordPress, we install WordPress, install all the plugins that we need. We've obviously decided on the plugins that we're going to use beforehand based on the type of functionality the site needs and so on. Then we'll get the client to review the revision of a revision review of the actual site. So what that means is that we include 2 rounds of revisions in the project as part of the price, right? So that means once we've done the setup of the site, we need them to look at it and make sure things are done in accordance with what we've agreed. And if they see anything that needs amending or changing, like minor changes, we ask them to give us a list, and we give them 3 days. We don't want to rush it, and we don't want to make it take too long either. So we ask them to give us up to 3 days essentially, where they give us one list, not sending multiple messages here and there, which can get lost. And we need to stay organized. So having that one list makes it easier for just going through step by step and doing the changes. Now, once we've gotten that list, we then request a 25% payment. So the progress payment is requested at this point before we actually go ahead and start doing the actual work of making the changes and doing the revisions, basically. So once that's done, we again make the changes by going through the document. We request the client's approval to say, okay, these are the things you've sent through. We've done them all. Can you confirm this? And if there's something that we misunderstood or didn't get right, we obviously will revise that or redo it. But once the client's approved it, we then do a final check on our end. And we also do a mobile check where we check the site on different screen sizes. So tablet and different size mobile screens. Now we do this in software, but then we will also want to do some internal checks with other people where we send out the link for the site, a special link that we send, by the way, to the client to do the revision, the same link. We send it to other people who can check it for us internally. So mobile phones are different based on manufacturers and models and so on. So we want to make sure that it comes up fine in different browsers on different devices. And nowadays it's mobile first for design. So we want to make sure that is working great in order to make sure that everyone's going to have a great user experience, at least most people, because there are different browsers as well. For example, Chrome, Safari, there's Firefox, there's Opera. There's all sorts of browsers, especially on mobile. There's several ones that are not even on desktop. So we can't test in every single browser. So we generally go for Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. Those are the 3 main browsers we test in. And as long as the site is working in that, we can't account for every single other browser. So the client needs to be aware of this as well. Now, the launch phase is the next phase, phase 4. And after all the hard work that we've just gone through, we need to actually now prepare for the launch. Now, clients can get a little bit apprehensive at this point, and they want to make sure things are perfect before they go live to the world, right? But the thing is with our website is never ever done. You're always going to do work, and we can always change things in the end or after the launch. Once we get things up to a point where it's good enough to launch, we have at least the minimum level of expectations and things working and things looking the way it's supposed to look, we're good to launch. We're going to make sure we do any testing of the software and things like that at this stage, just to make sure everything's working. And once we can confirm that, then we are great to launch. So we'll first of all collect the final payment, right? We don't do anything until we collect the final payment at this point. And if there's any additional work that we've done outside of what we quoted, client needs to pay that as well at this point. And then we either have to move the site to the client's hosting, if they're hosting it for themselves, and if we include moving it for them. Sometimes they can have the hosting company actually move the site for them, so in which case we would just give them access and so on to move the site. If the client is going to stay with us, in which case we're going to look after the site for them in terms of upkeeping the software, making sure it's updated in terms of software we're talking about, making sure the site is secure and backed up. So we do all the best practices for security. We back up the site. And we're doing this on a regular basis, daily and weekly, depending on the type of agreement. As well as making sure that this is a big one, that we help the client by handling queries, anything that might go wrong on their site, because there's multiple software running and stuff like that. If there's anything that goes wrong, we're the main point of contact. So they will get in touch with our help desk, and somebody would be there to respond to them in support via our ticketing system. And basically we would liaise with the software developers and the hosting company that we use and things like that to make sure that anything that needs to be resolved is resolved on behalf of the client. Otherwise, the client is going to end up having to deal with all of these multiple sections and these multiple companies, which it can be overwhelming, especially if they're not very organized, right? So this is something that is a big thing that we try and take off their shoulders, essentially. We prepare for the handover by putting together a document where we make sure all the relevant information for the client needs to be in that. So if we're handing over the site, obviously they need to know what the access details are. So logins, they need to know what the account information is for any services we set up for them. They need to also know what programs and software is running and what payments they have due each year, because software is not free. We have to license the software. WordPress is free, but most of the plugins that's going to be used on professional sites, you want to use paid plugins, which you get support for and you get ongoing updates, as opposed to relying on free plugins, which you have no guarantee of any updates or any support. So you can basically have the document that shows you everything and shows them everything, and they can go through and use that as sort of like a mini help guide. Now, in terms of the aftercare, this is they can either it's two things, right? One is if they're going to keep the site on their own and host it themselves, we monitor it for seven days. In which case, if there's anything that needs fixing that was on our part, we'll sort that out. So we monitor it for any errors and things like that that's caused by us. If it's something outside of that, then the client have to pay for any additional work, unless it's something minor that we might just take care of for them. If everything's fine at that point, obviously after 7 days, it's fully handed over to the client. And also, if they're staying with us, then obviously they sign up to our aftercare plan, and this is then sorted out for them ongoing. Pretty much that's it. That's the successful end of the project. Now, if you're looking to do this on your own and you don't know how to build a site using WordPress, I do have a beginner level course over on futurestepscreative.com that you can get started with. Just head over there and sign up for that course, and it will give you all the things you need to know that I use to build sites using WordPress and Divi, the theme by Elegant Themes. If you're just building a brand site, basically a site for your business to showcase what you have to offer, that kind of thing, you can learn how to do that using that course. There's some support available there as well, ongoing, if you need that. So do check out the information. I won't go into too many details there. Also, if you need to reach out to me and you need consulting or anything else to do with your strategy online, head over to marlonmcpherson.com and check out some of the services that I have there. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.